Hi, welcome to continuing the conversation with Sadie. Today I am joined by Greg. Hi Greg, how you doing?
Hi, Sadie. I'm doing pretty well. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Uh, it's amazing to have you. And Greg is all the way in America. So we're going a little bit further afield today. And we are going to talk about how Greg has gone from self-doubt to self-love, which is one hell of a journey. It's a lifelong journey, I imagine. Anyway, welcome to continuing the conversation with Sadie again. Today, we are going to explore care through the lens of lived experience, emotional intelligence, and the everyday practices that help us build more compassionate communities. Today, I'm joined by someone whose story speaks directly to the heart of resilience, self belief, and the courage it takes to rewrite the narratives we carry. Greg is a professional arm wrestler, a voice actor, and a man who has walked through the weight of depression and relentless negative self talk for years. He lived with the belief that he wasn't enough, caught in cycles of doubt that stripped away confidence and clarity. Everything began to shift when he discovered the power of mindset, self love, and the willingness to challenge the stories he's been telling himself. Now, Greg shares his journey and the tools that helped him break free from self defeating patterns, supporting others to reclaim their worth and step into a more empowered version of themselves. I actually feel quite emotional reading that. I'm honoured
Yeah.
to welcome him into this space today.
No, thank
Excuse
you
me, I'm
so much.
just welling up a bit there because
No, that's quite all
it's
right. I
very
mean,
relatable.
it really is a journey. I mean, it, and the thing that we should always remember, regardless of where or which phase we are in our journey, is like it's never going to be linear, and
Yeah,
it's okay
good
to
point.
kind of for the lack of a better term, like kind of fall off the wagon or kind of take a dip a little bit in your progress. That's fine. It just means that there's just something. There's another compartment of you that just kind of needs to be repaired before you keep moving on. Especially when we try and juggle so many different facets of my life, and that's why that I have started venturing into inspirational, motivational mindset speaking. Like I'm trying to do keynote speaking. That kind of
Amazing.
blends a little bit of stories of my life, but also to help those that were in the abyss like I was, and just kind of let them know that, regardless of the industry, regardless of where you are, I mean, there is always something a lot better awaiting for you. You just got to put on the different lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you've been so open about your journey with depression, negative self-talk. When you look back now, what core values do you think have helped you to begin to shift out of that place?
Yeah, good question. So I would say one of the first things that come to mind is like transparency, like being honest about how I was actually doing, as opposed to just trying to minimize the pain or say, like, oh well, that this is just normal. Like, oh, this is just something that every adult goes through. Oh well, my dad went through it, so I guess I need to endure it as well. But it's a little counterproductive. I learned that that's what it was. Like, I mean, because
Yeah,
it in my father's generation, it was a lot more stigmatized to
yes.
address mental
Good
health.
point. Generational.
Yes. And I would say second value, I would say the second value would be like responsibility. And by that, I mean realizing that while a lot that I went through it was not my fault, but healing I'm fully accountable and responsible for.
Yeah.
And I would say thirdly and most importantly was momentum over perfection. We don't really realize this, but we are constantly chasing perfection. Like we try and optimize things to be
Yeah.
absolutely flawless. And I don't know, it dawned on me that to stop trying to fix everything all at once and just focus on showing up a little better version
Yeah.
each day, and then that's when my constant negative self-talk I saw it begin to start losing its control, and I was giving myself evidence. I was giving my brain evidence instead of constant criticism and forecasting anything bad.
It's interesting what you say about perfection because I've got this thing in my head now where I just simplify it. I say perfection is not what the goal is, it's presence. Presence
Yes,
over perfection. And that
showing up.
really shuts my mind up because it just gets to the point and it's almost just it's the language that you use to talk to yourself.
It's setting the expectations. Like it's unreal expectations, and we don't realize that the expectations are, kind of unreasonable until we're like faced with so much, and then we're just uh y- pretty much hammering away at ourselves, and then it's like, and if we're so bogged in like our minds with everything, we kind of start to lose logic. So, it's always beneficial to just take a simple step back, like that nothing bad's going to happen when you do. Just, just let it flow for just a sec, put your car in park, get some
Yeah.
gas and stuff like that,
Yeah, just do it.
refuel.
Yeah. So your buzzwords are like resilience, honesty, and, presence over perfection. So you talk about learning to love yourself as a turning point, but what does self-love actually look like in practice for you when you take away those buzzwords?
I think what it all boils down to is um, not just affirmations or self affirmations, but it's how I treat myself when I mess up, and I think that's a big thing.
I love that.
Like it, it's supposed to be more pausing and reflecting as opposed to just punishing and acting like that I should know better. That's been a huge thing in like my life. Like, oh, why didn't I do this? I should have known better. But now I've shifted the conversation is like, okay, well, what is it that I need right now, or what do I need to do right now, as opposed to what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? It's more also about boundaries, like setting boundaries in integrated with self-love, like protecting my
Yeah.
time, my energy. And when you protect those elements, you then begin to protect your mental health. Like, even if it seems uncomfortable, because for a lot of us it's hard to say no, because like you
Yes.
want to prove yourself and you don't want to disappoint those that you care about. And it's and kind of echoing my first point, but discipline, like showing up for your family, for training, whatever you need to do, and because you ultimately respect yourself enough to keep your word. I mean, self love for me is it's about feeling good, but it's also more so about acting with self respect.
Yeah. So, with regards to practice and removing the buzzwords out of it and self love, let's have a think about your athletic background, your creative path. What feels most foundational to the way you show up today?
Well, yeah, talking about athletic as a pro arm wrestler, it taught me resilience,
Yeah,
and just like you take losses, and because it is a solo sport, you're ultimately fully accountable regardless of the
yeah,
outcome. Things also
good
happen
point.
beyond your control.
There's nowhere to go but you. Yeah,
Yes, and it's really great because it taught me that you either win or you learn. And yeah.
yeah. So we're just finishing off this section, looking at the roots of your work. So it's self love, but it's in a way that you've practiced it through your arm wrestling and your athletic background because it's taught you to just pick yourself up even when you feel like what's the point. You've managed to be kind to yourself and actually see it's not black and white, it's not win or lose, it's win or learn. And it's again, it's those really nice words you're using, which shows the way you talk to yourself. And if you're like that with yourself, you're kinder to others.
Yeah, it was the fear of being ostracized by others, by, oh man, if I'm not prepared enough, It's being graceful to yourself by preparing as long if you have like a 2 months or whatever to train, you just
Yeah.
set a few different goals. Celebrate your interim goals. Like we get so obsessed with getting to the ultimate goal, but we got to also enjoy the trajectory of our progress.
Absolutely.
And it's
We're
not
not
me
very good
going
at
in.
that in the UK.
Yes, it's so basically I look at it as like my goal isn't necessarily to beat the other person, which it is, but it's more so like it, confident. I'm confident in my regimen and the evidence that I gave myself in my brain, because like our brains are wired to collect evidence and detect patterns. But once I see it, I can feel good going into it with excitement as opposed to fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's really clear how you function from your core, your beliefs, your foundations. If we move on to emotional intelligence, I just want to understand, especially in how you learn to recognize and challenge your inner dialogue, which we just talked about, how you define emotional intelligence in the context of your own healing.
I would say that emotional intelligence started with more so awareness before reacting,
Yeah,
because for many
wonderful point.
years, my emotions was the one driving my life, especially with regard to self criticism and shame, frustration. And, but when I began healing, it taught me that emotional intelligence wasn't about trying to control my emotions. Like, even when I was getting help from counselors, they were talking about, oh, like controlling your emotions, which, maybe to a degree that's true, but
Mm,
healing taught me that emotional intelligence is more about recognizing them and just making sure they're not the ones driving,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
driving the car. And
Yeah,
it's being able to say, "Hey, something's coming up for me right now," and being able to choose an appropriate response instead of
yeah.
defaulting to self-punishment and avoidance. I don't know, that pause began to pivot.
Yeah. So it's about understanding yourself, really. And that can take a lifetime. But that's why it's called emotional intelligence. Yeah, I totally understand. And that's brilliant.
Very
Um,
self-aware.
yeah, you've supported others who struggle with self-doubt and internal criticism. What emotional skills do you find yourself teaching or modeling most often?
I would say a huge one is self-regulation, as in learning how to sit with some discomfort without immediately trying to escape it or to
Yeah,
attack yourself. And when you step into the uncertainty and discomfort, that's when you start to grow. And I also
absolutely.
I also try to model self-compassion paired with accountability. Uh, you could be kind to yourself, be compassionate towards yourself, and still expect growth and progress. I mean, the two things don't have to be opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. And I think I can really, now talking to you, and as the conversation grows, I can really see how your athletics, athletic side, your professional box arm wrestling has really given you these skills because I can see a lot of it coming from that because obviously with being a pro, you must have had a lot of different experiences of doing well, not so well, picking yourself up. And actually that sort of journey is where you're really going to learn about yourself. So I can see where you're coming from and it's a fantastic thing to do. And I think it also highlights, especially for everybody in the UK, celebrate your little wins, but also be kind to yourself and also, you know, recognize an emotion as a positive thing and let it direct you rather than the other way around. Don't
Hmm.
always try and control, and have a hobby. Get out because that's where you're getting it from, isn't it? So that's a really good tool. You've navigated rejection, loss, and the pressure of performance in both sport and voice acting, which I haven't talked much about yet. How do you maintain your emotional boundaries and well-being while moving through the highs and lows?
I would say I began to learn to create these emotional boundaries by deciding what I will and will not attach my worth to. So, eh,
Boundaries.
in arm wrestling and voice acting, rejection and loss is inevitable. So instead of asking, "What does this say about me?" then I ask, "Okay, then what am I getting out of it? Like, what is this
Yeah.
teaching me?" And
Yeah.
that one shift can protect my mental health. And this, I rely on structure, like routine, training, just any kind of grounding habits, because motivation, it's going to come and go, but
Yeah.
having discipline, commitment, structure. I like to use the word commitment because, like, discipline, I often associate with being in trouble in school, because it's a bit of an ambiguous term. I like commitment a little better. You stay
Yeah.
committed.
Yeah.
It
Trust the
keeps you
process.
it keeps you yes, it keeps you steady, and I
That's your
stay.
sport.
Yeah. So I
That is
stay.
definitely your sport coming through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's like it's been my bread and butter, I mean, for all intents and purposes, and I've just been working so hard trying to impress my father, because he's a pro arm wrestler himself, a legend, actually, and
Right.
he was a very prominent figure in the industry, so me trying to get
Yeah.
under his footsteps
That's
and
hard.
get my own identity, even though he never made me feel like it, but, yeah, but at the same time, I still wanted to make him proud, and that was always kind of an underlying pressure, but I finally let go of that. And it just, it keeps the highs from inflating my ego and the lows from defining me.
Yeah. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. It's the self-awareness coming in as well.
Exactly.
Definitely. Yeah, so yeah, emotional intelligence, I think that's been explained really, really well there. So when it comes to what I call reflective care, I know you're a, professional arm wrestler, but you're also a voice actor. Um, Reflective care would still come into that because it's central to sustainable care. We all care for somebody, a loved one, an elderly person. But with you, what does reflective care mean to you, especially as someone who's had to confront your own inner critic?
It was kind of creating space for myself as opposed to judgment, and just being able to
Mm,
talk out loud about it, because my inner critic and imposter syndrome, it's it's loud. Like, it used to be very loud, but just because it's loud doesn't mean it's truthful. And I thought the answer was to, fight it or just do what I can to keep it quiet, but
yeah,
what I learned was that reflection is not about trying to silence it, but it's about listening long enough to understand even why it's there, and just, you know, it can come the intruders can come knocking in the door, but that doesn't mean you have to let them in to have a cup of tea. It's like when I reflect, I'm asking, okay, what am I reacting and what's being protected? And so the curiosity starts to turn self-attack into just understanding, and that's where real reflective care can begin in my eyes.
and it makes you, again, if you're nice to yourself, you're nicer to other people. So again, that reflection, I think of it as like a mirror. So like, but it's a mirror, not in a negative way, which is the way it does get portrayed sometimes. It's a mirror that says, here's who you are, but here's who you could be if you
Mhm.
acknowledge what you see. And that's a big leap emotionally to see it like that. So yeah,
Indeed.
totally understand that. A lot of people struggle to slow down enough to notice their patterns or the stories they're repeating. How do you help others recognize those internal narratives?
I like to start by just trying to slow things down and ask those individuals to pay attention to their language, more so their emotions. And the stories show up in phrases like, "Oh, well," it's like, "I always mess this up," I mean, "Oh, well, that's just my luck. That's just who I am," when someone hears themselves say those things out loud, it
Yeah.
creates a moment of awareness, but from there, I help them separate the facts from the stories that they're telling. So, facts are neutral, stories are more so emotional. And once you can distinguish those two, then you could choose whether that story will serve you or it's just something that you could just rewrite yourself.
Yeah. And also, I think we have to add in a practical element here that, I mean, here in the UK, I think, we live a very busy, full on life, managing families, working long hours, doing crazy shifts. And, you know, it's not uncommon to hear of people using these things to distract them away from their own problems. And I know in America, well, I've heard that you work very long hours out there because everybody's got their own businesses. And all what I'm getting at is sometimes the lifestyle we have to live to pay the bills does not always help us have the time we need to have that internal resolution and the time it takes to go through that to actually get to a point where you are. Sometimes our lives are so busy and so crazy that you almost need to sort of take a practical look at your life and say, what what is worth holding on to, what is worth letting go, and allowing space to actually develop yourself and do the internal work. Do you find that with
Yeah.
your in America, is it, long hours? Are is it hard for people to find the time to do the work to slow down?
It it is hard to slow down because basically we have become managers more so than creators. Like if we're
Yeah,
managers, so what I mean by that is managing it like we're managing our life, our finances, our kids. Just juggling, and what that is that all that's doing is keeping the ship on course, which you need to do on a
yeah,
lot of days. But
yeah,
if that's all you're doing and not creating, then your life just becomes like a never-ending cycle, and you just and you start to lose your sense of purpose.
yeah.
And when
You're on a
but
hamster wheel.
but when you are creating something, whether it's a business, whether it's a mission to help a community, it's it starts to fulfill you with purpose. You're
Yeah,
basically pulled into motivation as opposed to trying to push for motivation. That's what people that are like working long hours, just kind of in a never-ending cycle as parents, or in college students university students trying to push through their schoolwork. They're trying to manage, but at the same time, if you learn to create something, it's hard to find ample time, ha- but don't look at the end goal, the end destination. Think, okay, well, what can I do right now to move a little bit closer
yeah,
towards
yeah.
that? So
Nicely said.
I think that reframing was a pretty huge shift. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's brilliant. Without breaking confidentiality, can you share a moment where reflective care, either for yourself or someone you supported, created a meaningful shift?
It was well, I could say, at least in my own journey, I realized that my inner critic was, not trying to harm me, like it was just trying to keep me safe from failure or embarrassment. And instead of punishing myself after mistakes, I started reflecting on, what I could pick up from it as opposed to uh, trying to appraise my worth that way. But I've seen the
Yeah,
same thing happen with others. Like when someone realizes that they don't have to constantly be at war with themselves to grow, then then that the pressure kind of alleviates itself, and then they start to celebrate progress and allow it to accelerate as opposed to uh, appraising their worth based off of whether they reach their final destination at this time. It
right.
reflection doesn't
Okay.
slow growth, but it kind of it stabilizes it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I would say it's a lifelong ongoing process, isn't it? It's not point one to point two. And it's
Right.
like you said at the very beginning, it's not linear. And you've really got to be in touch with how you feel to sort of stay on track with that, haven't you? Based
Right.
on everything you've just said.
Yeah, it's like trying to climb a ladder, and if you have to get to the 25th rung and you're on the 3rd rung and you try and jump high and fly up to the 25th and you fall and you get discouraged because of that. Like, well,
Yeah.
you got to step to the 4th and the 5th rung first. Don't be don't be frustrated. It's momentum. It is creating momentum
It's,
as
yeah,
opposed to
momentum. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Brilliant. Um, I think we need to move on to resilience and the future of care. Now, I know um, we've talked a little bit about your sport and what you've got through that, but if we talk about your depression, self doubt, and the fear of not being enough, what have those experiences taught you about resilience?
I for a long time had thought that being resilient was just trying to bury the pain, proving that I'm able to handle more than most people. But what I learned instead is that resilience is being able to stay focused and engaged with life, even when you are not feeling optimal or strong. It's about showing up I even imperfectly and always imperfectly and kind of embrace that. Not intentionally show up imperfect, but be willing to and bold enough. Like, don't be afraid to ask for support. Choose not to abandon yourself in moments where it would be easy to shut down. And it's resilience is more about self-loyalty.
Yeah, good. Yeah, yeah, brilliant. When you look at the future of care, personal, relational, and community based, so caring for others now, um, what gives you hope, knowing everything you know now?
I I am actually seeing more openness surrounding mental health and emotional intelligence, like especially among like men, which was not very
Yeah,
common when I
I'm
was
seeing that in the
younger.
UK as well. Yeah,
Yes, care. I mean, the way I see care is that it's becoming more it's more relational based and not as much transactional anymore. Uh, People are learning that healing is does not happen in isolation. Like it has to happen with consistency, being seen, and connection. And I think this is what's giving me hope. Being able to be open to discuss what's going on and not make it as taboo as it once was.
and it takes away the stigma, which is massive. If you think about generational care, um, a lot of my work is with the elderly, and they're from the generation where you here in the UK, they were told to, get on. The words were, get on with it, stiff upper lip,
Toughen up.
crack on. Yeah. But they're quite amused at the fact that our generation are very much, let's talk about it. Let's not have a stigma. Let's make it normal. Let's make it feel normal, look normal. Um, and so I'm really, really glad to hear that's how you feel where you are. And it's not just the UK, it's a worldwide movement. And, to talk about it here on my podcast for my listeners to understand that care comes in all shapes, forms, sizes, and we can all relate to it on any level. And that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm really pleased with that. It gives me a lot of hope as well. What practices or mindsets do you believe will matter most for the next generation of people learning to rewrite their inner stories? So the next generation going forward.
To me, the most important mindset is that you are not your thoughts and they're not truths either. All you are is you are the observer of your thoughts. Like it's just information. And if the next generation can learn to kind of observe their inner dialogue without, identifying with it, I think that alone will begin to change everything for them. So, like these different practices like reflection, self compassion, emotional literacy, I mean, they're foundational skills. And when people learn to treat themselves with the same honesty and care that they would offer others that they care about and love, then they stop living from fear and then begin to live with clarity
Very good.
and
Yeah,
intention.
love that. And I just want to finish on something that I've learned from talking with you today, and that is you are not your parents. You are you. And that's what you learn through everything you've just described so brilliantly throughout this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to just wind it up with a few things that I think we've learned today. Um, First of all, I do really want to honor your honesty and courage for talking with me today.
Thank you.
Your reflections on self-talk, emotional intelligence, reflective practice, and resilience really remind us all that healing isn't a single moment. It's a series of choices made over time to show up differently for ourselves.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you for bringing your lived experiences, your vulnerability, again, that's a strength, and your strength into this space, expressing all that as well. It's been a privilege to sit with you and explore the many layers of your journey. Thank you so much. And this this has been continuing the conversation with me, Sadie. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other and keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep caring.
Take care, everybody.